A Light in the Darkness Chapter 49, Fan Fiction by Azazyel. As I came back into the sect, I was welcomed to the sight of a small crowd of the sect's disciples having come to sit cross-legged in front of one of the Eldar that was telling some kind of story about one of their craft world's battles. Patriarch Kalnedor, the leader of this Eldar party, greeted me by bowing his head in my direction. Your battle with the Masque of Slaanesh has been recorded and shared amongst the stars via our bone singers, and we have spun the tale into the fabric of the Immaterium for all to see in the future. He said proudly, and I nodded as honestly, I didn't really care much for the so-called glory of such a kill, as I wasn't able to fully absorb the demon and permanently kill her. I see. And have the hymns settled with you and your brethren's souls? I asked, and the Eldar actually chuckled, smiling as he grinned up at the sky. Yes, as I mentally recite the sect's different hymns and chants, I can already feel it forming a shell around my soul as well as differing chants augmenting our Pisker abilities, Kalnedor spoke, and I nodded in understanding as I knew that would probably be the case anyway. Sure, the chants may help Eldar's casting of the warp sorcery as it would calm the surrounding weave of sub-reality, but in the end, it wasn't of much interest to me except for how it cancelled out Slaanesh's influence and kept it from gnawing at Eldar's souls. Though it could also be used to boost the power of Immaterium Geller fields, as it would heavily soothe the surrounding warp. Good luck having a bunch of humans tainted by the Emperor's godhood doctrine, chanting and devoting their souls to a pious chant that doesn't hint at their God Emperor of mankind. While the leftover Tyrannid settle across the planet, have Arya report to me in the back fields with her sister. I will teach her and her ghost sister something interesting. I said as I watched the leader of the human disciples, Abraxas, the older man with one arm, taking on the other male Eldar in melee combat and was able to match the Eldar using his Pisker abilities with his sword arts and nascent sword intent that he had nurtured after seeing me use my so much. Yes, Patriarch. Before I do that, however, what should I respond to Craft World Iandan's hail as to our circumstances? He asked respectfully, and I shrugged. I gave the Eldar that bore a seal within his soul that would kill him if he attempted to betray the sect a dull look. With your leader being obsessed with taking your whole people into death to possibly awaken Inyad, the Eldar death god. Would she even accept a different salvation? I asked. The man grimaced as he thought out the scenario before his eyes firmed. Patriarch, can I dash? I raised a hand to cut him off. Yes, you can take the steel that carries the hymns, but remember for all that look upon it and accept the teachings within. They will be eternally bound to the sect. I warned him, and he nodded in understanding as he could feel the seal within his soul, though he had a differing idea of what it did. Yes, Patriarch, I understand. But I have to try, and in the worst case, I will do what needs to be done in the face of a new light in the darkness. Kalnedor finished as he bowed his head to me in respect, and seeing his determination, I sighed and laid my hand upon his shoulder. Then Disciple Kalnedor, be careful on your journey, I said as I handed him a long, straight sword. I kept on my side that I planned to gift to one of the other disciples after taking their opinion on the great battle that had occurred. Kalnedor then stepped back, walking towards the large Eldar Wraith Knight that was parked next to the Eldar ship they took to get here, and a couple of minutes later, I saw the Wraith Knight hum to life, so I turned around to go to the back side of the sect to teach that Wraith Knight operator and her ghost sibling together. I sat down on a thick pillow that was lying on a carpet as the Wraith Knight kneeled down with her operator having climbed down from her mech suit and was sitting on the large, spindly knee of the mech. Arya the Wraith Knight operator was a more stereotypical Eldar with how she had red hair, green eyes, and a thin nose that allowed her to have a beautiful visage in the view of humans. And the fact that she was wearing a skin-tight suit that accented her ample assets was certainly a feast for the eyes. What is a true living being? I asked Arya, and she frowned at my abrupt question. But seeing me give no answer or explanation, she paused as she contemplated her answer before attempting to give one. It is a song. All songs are different with tones and their beats matching their own lives, no matter how weak or strong they may resound through the Immaterium. She spoke, but I shook my head. You aren't wrong, but that's not the answer I sought. True sentient life is two things. A heart that holds your physical body together and your soul that holds all that what makes you sentient in yourself. I explained before looking at her sister. Your sister is missing her heart and thus cannot walk the typical path of cultivation that would more easily protect her soul from she who thirsts, I said, and her eyes flashed with despondency, but I continued. But just as she does not have a heart, you, as her twin, do have a heart. What you must do is cultivate her an extra heart in this case, and she will make your soul more powerful. In time, with either of you having enough power, the two of you could reform her body, or I could just make a puppet body for her to control in the meantime, so she can leave the Wraith Knight. I added. Arya took a deep breath as she spoke. Patriarch, having my twin sister stand beside me and able to speak clearly is but a dream for me. I will never be able to repay you for such a favor. She finished, and I flicked a rock that was in front of my cushion through a boulder, shattering it. Your favor is appreciated, but repay me through service in bettering the heavens = Sect, I said before clearing my throat as I began to recite a cultivation method that fitted her circumstances. Granted, it was another sort of yin-yang cultivation style me and Ellesmere practiced, but the scope and difference in power of the arts was inconceivable. Hers was an interesting method where there was 2 koi fish. They would first cultivate within their souls with one each that came with several stages. For the living twin they had to cultivate the yang method, and inside their soul would form a golden koi filled with yang energy, and they would provide the power of life in the cycle, and for her sister she would need to follow the yin path and thus form a silver koi that in her soul that would provide the duo spiritual energies. Lastly, at the end of the mortal section of this cultivation method, their koi would go through tribulation and thus be able to transcend their ignoble bloodlines and jump through the dragon gate, turning from koi to flood dragons. Still, lesser dragons, and maybe in a couple of centuries, I can trust them to give the rest of the method that will allow their flood dragons to evolve once more into true dragons. What is your twin's name anyway? I asked with a bit of curiosity, and Arya looked up to the face of the Night Wraith as though communicating with her twin within after I imparted the cultivation method to them. My sister's name is Ilaria, and we are of House Brynner. She said regally, and I just rolled my eyes. Space elves and their egos. Literally willing to kiss my shoes to save their souls, but still so proud of their noble houses that were probably alive at the time of Slaanesh's birth.